Good evening, Haddonfield, and welcome to another edition of Haddonfield Talks on this wonderfully snowy evening. Hopefully, everyone's stayed safe out there. We figured we'd bring you something special tonight because what else are you doing tonight, right? I mean, you're snowed in, 20-some inches on the ground or whatever they've said. What was it, Chris? A cyclone bomb? Is that what it called it?
Yeah, they bombed cyclone.
A bomb cyclone, the first of its history.
Crippling snow.
We want to welcome to the stage with us two very esteemed, distinguished gentlemen here, very well known in the Haddonfield community for literally shaping the way we live here in Haddonfield. Mr. Thomas Wagner of Thomas B. Wagner Architects and Mr. J. Reinert of J. Reinert Architecture. How are you guys?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Doing good. Thanks for having us. Yes.
It's our pleasure. We are really, really, really intrigued tonight to understand the relationship the two of you have together, as well as the influence you've had on the town and what we see as Haddonfield today, as well as maybe Haddonfield in the past and in the future. So maybe we'll start with Thomas. Tell us a little bit about your background for people that don't know, where you professionally trained, some of the noteworthy projects you worked on. Give us all that good stuff.
Sure. Well, I grew up at Vineland, and I went to school at Temple University in Philly, and lived there for a number of years. I worked for a couple of the bigger architectural firms in the city, including one of the big architectural firms that did buildings like the Gallery downtown, and some other notable projects. And then I went to work for a company called Historic Landmarks for Living, which is a real estate development company that took a lot of the old historic buildings in Philly and then in many other cities in the country and converted them into condominiums and rental apartments. And then I went on my own in 91. Jay came to work with me. I can't remember when, maybe he'll remember. We worked together for a number of years. I was here in Haddonfield, I think in the mid 80s, I think is when I first came to town. I did work for originally for the borough in the school district. I think one of my first Haddonfield projects was the Mabel K Senior Living Center. And I did a number of projects for the borough, the new public works building, a bunch of the Scout Field House, a couple of the other field houses, and some work for the borough before I really started getting into the residential market in town. And I think once I started there, it was kind of never really looked back. It ended up being all the residential work is really where most of the projects that we've done here in town.
Jay, how about yourself?
So I'm from Cherry Hill, have a lot of roots back Collingswood. My great grandparents were in Collingswood, both sides. I mean, it's just so my dad moved us to Cherry Hill when I was very young. My first exposure with Haddonfield was as about a 12-year-old. From Cherry Hill, I came to play for the Bulldogs 125 team,
Did you guys weigh in back then or what?
Oh, yeah. And I had a tough weight. It was hard. I came for 2 years. It was an interesting young age, being an out of town guy. I was kind of seen as the person like, oh my gosh, this guy's from out of town, So that was kind of fun. I went to school at University of North Carolina, Charlotte for my undergraduate and got my master's at NC State. First job was here on 16 South Haddon Avenue for an architect named Ralph Pendrak. I worked with him for a bunch of years. And then how I met Tom was Mr. Pendrak passed away, and it was just he and I. And I was not licensed at the time. And so I had talked to Tom, and Tom said, finish them up. I'll review them and sign, seal, and we'll share, we'll give the money to his widow. And I knew I liked Tom. That's the
Mhm.
guy. So that was my first experience there. And then when we started to work together, it was June 2nd, 1998. And I know that because I had to call him at 7:30 and cancel the meeting because my daughter was born. And that was going to be our first meeting to go measure a project together. Yeah, we spent quite a bit of years working with each other. And I learned a lot from Tom during that period of time. Right, I guess when the economy, died and I had received my license, we kind of went and I had some projects and Tom had projects, so we just kind of separated at that point and got going. Notable projects: Jackson's Funeral Home's probably an easy one, that people know. And then more recently, Hadro House, which got us some notoriety for sure, got us some recognition, which is great.
So I have a lot of questions, and also taking it from someone that really doesn't know much about architecture at all. I'd rather, it's fun to do these interviews because I can play stupid because I am stupid when it comes to this stuff. But I guess starting from, if someone were to come into town, right, and wanting to build a home from scratch, how difficult is it to stray from the actual elements of what we call historic or common architecture that we see in Haddonfield? Do you have to go through a lot to create something that's very, very different, or is the influence of the architecture very rigid for a reason? I mean, give us an idea of what that process is like nowadays.
If you're in the historic district, it's one thing. So, if you're probably not building anything new, there isn't too much, there's no place in the historic district you can build something new. So you do have to kind of do projects that kind of fit with the existing buildings and kind of in the historic district. But I mean, outside of the district, you can really do whatever you want. There's no, it's really between you and the client of what you want to do. Sometimes, you might think that you want to, do something that fits into the neighborhood, or if the client is looking for something, unique, and then they can do that. I mean, good example is Jay's Hadro House, and you can talk a little bit about, about that client and what they want to do.
Yeah, please. We'd love to hear it.
So, is it difficult? I mean, like Tom said, and it really, projects aesthetics are typically inspired by the client, right? And it is interesting how often when we do something a little more contemporary, I have a neighbor or something ask me like, why did they want that? Or why did you design that? And the answer is because that's kind of the type of house they wanted.
Right.
I mean, they didn't come to me with asking for a Victorian home, and I convinced them to do something in steel and glass, right? I mean, that's just the client comes with their own value system. Sometimes, that's coming out of somebody who wanting to be a little more sustainable, having a little more natural light, open space. There's a lot of reasons. I think why a client could choose that, and there's just as many reasons why a lot of locations do really not require, but suggest that they be more contextual. Yeah. So I mean, it's not like Haddonfield. Thankfully, does not have a good taste committee. Right. I mean, the zoning ordinance is trying. The zoning ordinance is trying to be a good taste, guideline, but thankfully they haven't gotten to that point yet.
What are you guys seeing in terms of the demand, even outside of the historic district? Do a lot of people want to conform I guess, to a lot of the historic elements, or does it really depend situationally or where you're actually physically located in town? Does that really come into play a lot, or are you finding even new builds outside of that want to have the elements of the originality of the town?
I think that people they'll look at, for example, Jay's website, or they'll look at my website, and if they're calling me, they're looking for something that is, kind of fits into the kind of thing that I do more. They'll usually come with an idea of, what they like. I always tell them to get me photographs or something that, show me some houses that you like. Give me an idea of what your taste is. And inevitably, in addition to, something that's, everybody wants things to be more contemporary on the inside. They all seem to want, open concept rooms and that kind of thing. But, sometimes they're looking for something that is either more traditional or maybe just, of a certain style or something, on the exterior of the building of the house. And we'll look at what they want to do and kind of look at the neighborhood and kind of see how it's going to kind of all work together. That's kind of how I usually approach it when a client, comes to me looking for something.
What do you guys feel about the McMansion movement? I'm just curious. I'm sure you've heard of that term before, right? Everyone says when there's new homes coming, they're getting larger and grander. And I guess there's some resistance for people that have been here forever. Chris and I are obviously of the newer generation, so we're just like, whatever. But I think that, and Chris can speak to this too, because he's a South Jersey native. I think one of the things you love about Haddonfield is seeing the old historic architecture along with the beautiful Main Street. So, I mean, Chris, what's your opinion? You grew up in South Jersey.
Yeah, so you used an interesting word at the top of the podcast for Tom and Jay, shaping Haddonfield's future, and I wonder how you balance, maybe it's not shaping, but preserving the character of the neighborhoods with the need for energy efficiency or technology updates in these homes, or like you said, the perhaps the aesthetic upgrades like open concept. Is there is it contemplated with your clients as to preserving the character of the street or the neighborhood? And is that amplified when there's a need to present an application to the zoning board?
Well, you only have to go to the zoning board, I think, is if you're asking for a variance. I mean, if you're not asking for a variance, you don't need to go to the zoning board. So people try to avoid that like the plague. And you'll find that.
Do they like you over there, Tom?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you'll find that if it depends on who the client. If the client's a builder, I also do a number of projects for some of the local builders in town. They, again, probably more than anyone, will avoid going to the zoning board like the plague. But even someone that wants to build a house or wants to do something for themselves, they might, they really want to fit into the neighborhood. But let's be honest, they want to build the nicest, biggest house they can, because Haddonfield's zoning is actually, and people don't realize this, is stricter than it is in most of all the surrounding towns in terms of coverage and height restrictions and where the garage can be and all those kinds of things. And so they
Tom, most people realize that after they've already bought.
Yeah. It's true. They're trying to use the ordinance a bit to try to regulate good taste, and good, and it just doesn't, you can't do it that way. I mean, so my answer to that question would be like, and Tom's heard me say this a zillion times, I mean, I think that there's three types of houses, and the first type of house is, maybe a Victorian on Washington that is about as close to original as it's been, as when it was created. It's been, well maintained. It's, architecturally relevant. It adds to the community context. And that, in my opinion, is a house that should be protected with everything we have. Right. And when I say that, I mean, like, the historic preservation allows you to change anything except what's facing the street, public view. Right. I think that, by actually changing them more than that is removing their ability to teach us or remind us about the society and culture that built them to begin with. Right. And so I do think that the town should have or should be purchasing some of these houses and figuring out uses for them and maintaining them as they are as museums. And I know that's a difficult thing to do, but if you profess that you are all about, communal memory and and history, then we need to put our money where our mouth is. And a number two house is the houses that are 99% of the town, which are the ones that make up the context of the neighborhood. They're for today's lifestyles typically not great. They're undersized, or they're broken up too much and things like that. In my opinion, those houses should be encouraged to evolve. To support.
When were the bulk of those built? I'm just curious. The second ones.
Tom's better at this than I am.
I'm just curious in terms of as the town progressed.
Most of the neighborhoods, Tom, in town.
Right. Oh, what are the ages of the houses you're saying?
The ones that fit the second category, where people are having trouble just from a size perspective, the more common ones.
Well, I mean, there's all the different neighborhoods in town that kind of grew up that way. I mean, if you look at, let's call it the Washington Avenue, that neighborhood between Warwick and the railroad tracks, those are early houses, earlier in the late 1800s, or maybe up to around 1900. Those are usually bigger houses. Back years ago, a lot of them were converted into apartments at one time, and they're all back to single family houses now. But I think if you go into, for example, the estate neighborhood, or even some of the neighborhoods over by Lizzie Haddon, the kind of post-war houses, the ones your parents grew up in, or maybe that had 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and you had 6 kids in there, and they lived comfortably back then. That was the way. That's just not going to happen today. So those are the houses that, although they were built in the time where the ceilings are a little lower and the rooms are all cut up, and mom was over in the kitchen behind the door, and for some reason you were able to survive with 8 people in the house and 1 bathroom, and nobody thought twice about it. Those neighborhoods, those houses have all been changing over the years, and there's not too many left like that still.
And instead of changing, though, now they're the ones that are also kind of the ones being torn down and replaced.
Right. If not expanded, there are some of them that are, yes.
So in my mind, that's where we're losing the communal memory, of a traditional town that has a certain feel to it. And again, putting money where your mouth is, if that's really important to maintain in Haddonfield, they ought to have a tax abatement or some incentivizing program that encourages us and our clients and the developing community to be modifying these houses in a way that makes sense, helps them evolve slowly, maybe more slowly, which means encouraging smaller projects, which the borough does not do.
That's interesting.
So as a matter of fact, I'm glad Jay brought that up, because he and I were involved. What was it? It's been probably 10 years ago or so, Jay, when they updated the ordinance, and they had a number of meetings, the not the commissioners, it's really the planning board and the zoning board. when they were updating the ordinance, one of the things they did is they kind of copied a little bit of an ordinance from another town up north, and used that kind of as a guide. But they asked both Jay and I to speak on a number of issues, and those are some of the things that we brought up. Like, you don't try to fight the people that are tearing the houses down and building what they want to build. Why don't you encourage them to do the right thing? And maybe whatever, if the right thing is, don't tear the house down, but maybe expand it a little bit or do something that'll still keep the character of the house that it's there. To do that, either a higher tax if you do one thing, or it's a rebate, or you give them a little bit more coverage if they keep the house versus if they tear it down. Things that will, you kind of want to work with them a little bit. Well, they completely ignored everything that he and I, discussed and recommended to those boards. There was quite a few things that we had kind of.
Yeah.
It all
And
went.
then I was just reviewing the master plan, that's out there, and their way of trying to promote it now is they're suggesting that if that they should reduce coverage, which would discourage tearing the house down and building a new house, because now you couldn't build a new house that was big enough, right?
It's no longer existing.
And it's just, honestly, and I don't mean, it's wrong thinking, in my opinion, that if you take a house and you tell people that if you knock this down, or even if you don't knock it down, you're over covered, and so we're not going to approve any variances. So this house is going to stay that way, right? Well, when a house is not allowed to evolve, right, it dies, and people don't put money in it. When Johnny graduates, we're going to sell it and move. Well, when Johnny graduates in 10 years and nothing's been done to the house, it's a knockdown. What they're doing with the regulation is actually encouraging knockdowns, maybe to increase tax revenue, but I won't go there. Really what they should be doing is saying, we're going to allow you to do a little more with these houses if you maintain them.
That makes a lot of sense.
And instead of going the other way. And it's the problem, I think, is they're not clear on this. They don't have a story about what Haddonfield should be, right? I mean, again, the communal memory is what it was, right? And some of that should be preserved and obviously celebrated and carried forward. But you can't just try to hold on to the past so strong and then try to implement these sustainability issues or solutions that don't fit with an older house like that. Right. Yeah. I mean, when we've got to put R60 insulation in a ceiling, that's like 17 inches worth of insulation, right? Yeah. At the edge wall. So you basically have to take the roof that's now like this and lift it up another 2 feet.
Yeah.
The proportions of the house are shot, right?
That's all by code.
And then you also have maximum building heights. Now so instead of getting a nice roof pitch, the roofs start to get lower. We need to either help them evolve, or and I call it the level 3 house, is when it's right to tear a house down. Sometimes that happens. We had one on Hawthorne where it was a great house, but I mean, the prior owner who lived there forever had cats, and they never took care of the house. And a young couple was buying it to make their forever house. And I don't like tearing houses down, but I didn't feel right guiding this client into trying to take a house and raise young children in a house that has cat urine soaked in the wood, right? So, there you have to say, I think we're best off taking it down. But my opinion is when we take a house down, we should be building and replacing it with number one houses from our period of time, right? So in 1885, or 1900, when, a place in town was made space for a Victorian to go up, that was cutting edge architecture of its time, right? Mm-hmm. And, when we take them down, we should be placing our time in history, showing our value system and what the earth means to us and what community means to us and how family relates to each other. And our houses should be doing that. But they also should be respecting the context that they're within.
And do you guys think, when you talk about your brands individually as from an architectural standpoint, are there of the three homes you mentioned, obviously 1 and 3 being the most appealing, mm-hmm. Is there something you would say, like if someone were to give you a pencil and paper and say, build me my Haddonfield home, would you both lean towards number 1?
I'm not sure what that number 1 is. So.
Number 1's historic museum type home.
Tom, come on. What do you?
No, that's okay. You're good.
I missed some of that part of it, but no. I mean, like I said, I like to give somebody what they're looking for.
Yeah.
I want to make the client happy. I want to have the client have a house that they like, that they feel comfortable with. And if it happens to be a historic style house, then I'm going to give them a historic style house because that's what they want. And that's what they want to, they want us to do for them, and they want to live in. I've got a number of them going on right now that they'll send me a picture. There's, the styles these days seem to go in, waves. I don't know if everybody watches too much HGTV or what it is, but I'm hoping we get out of the black and white thing. I've been hoping that for a couple of years now. But we still seem to be doing some of those because I don't know, maybe it's HGTV reruns or something. But
but you guys don't like the all black facade?
I don't mind, and so like to me, I get especially years ago, I'd get asked questions a lot like, so do you think black windows are going to stay? And I'm like, so do you know how easy it is to change a black window into a white window when you're tired of it? I mean, that's like the smallest part of like our design decisions, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thing. I mean, I think Tom used the word style, and I would say, I think one of the issues is that most of the houses in town don't have enough style. They have too much fashion, right? Yeah. Fashion just comes and goes and changes, and it's fun, right? When it's clothing, right? But if something has a style to it, it's of its own, and it's unique and authentic to itself. It's every house on the street shouldn't have the same style, right? The style ought to come from its location, the people who own it and developed it and built it and love it, So, yeah, like whether it's black siding or white siding or green siding or blue siding, I mean, I think all that should be discovered in a process of trying to figure out what the solution, trying to discover what the solution is for the client that in the context and location that they're trying to put their house, right? So it really is blending all of these things together. It's not just I'm sorry, I'm talking so much, but this is how I love when clients call, like I say, so if you're going to hire me, you're not going to hear me say, I can do that. You're going to hear me say, why would you want to do that? Mm-hmm. And it's not me trying to be contrary. It's me exploring, what is the problem that you're really trying to solve? Mm. If you come to me with a solution to a problem, it's likely a better explanation of the problem than it is a solution to it.
Mm.
right? And so that's kind of how like you were talking about brand. I mean, the way I work is, I mean, my goal is to help people discover what it is that works best for them.
Mm. Interesting. I mean, I think the other part that, and this is not even as someone looking to build a home, but as someone who's coming into the town and understanding Haddonfield as a whole. When you think of Haddonfield, you really do think of the historic parts of it, right? Because if you were to draw what Haddonfield looks like from an outside perspective, not as someone moving into other parts, it's the historical part. I'm wondering how much of a struggle it is going forward for us to continue to maintain that. And maybe you guys can comment. And this is something Chris probably knows more than I do. I have no idea. So Haddonfield has its own historical preservation society, I would presume, right?
Mhm.
And,
Well, there's two things. There's a historic society, but there's a historic commission, which is a group that reviews projects that are in the historic district.
Mhm.
That's it's like the zoning board, the planning board. We have something called a historic commission, but you have to be in the district for that to you have to kind of review that. There was some discussion years ago about expanding the historic district,
Mm.
and there are kind of, I'm going to say, outside influence that want that to happen, but a lot of the people that live in those houses that would be where the historic district would be expanded, they're a little leery because
Right.
they don't really want to give up some of they don't want to have to use this kind of siding, or they want to have to be able to change their windows. They want to be able to, they don't want to have to go back and go to a meeting and go through what they have to do. But I'll tell you, it made a huge difference in Haddonfield when this was created in the 70s.
Mm.
It really was the best thing that really could have happened to this town.
Has the footprint shrunken over? How long has, I guess, the map of the historic part, has it shrunk, grown? Like when has it changed at all?
It hasn't changed at all.
It hasn't changed.
I don't believe it has. I think it's
Okay.
the same as it's been.
I mean, there's got to be some argument though for fighting for it, right? I mean, and that's, as someone who's a block outside of it, I could tell you, it's easy for me to look outside in, right? But
Right.
at the same time, I would think, if I'm buying in this area, I feel like there should be some level of disclosure required, right? And that the town should fight. I mean, if let's say in theory we're to lose that, right? And then you're fighting literally to keep any historic home historic at that point, and the town really does lose its identity, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that it would hurt quite a bit. I mean, it really started years ago. There were entire blocks that were being bought up by developers when the speed line was coming through, and they wanted to put a number of high rises, office buildings. That was back then. It was really office buildings, and luckily they stopped that from happening, and then created this district, and I think that did. Besides what it did for the downtown, which was again a lot, but what it did into some of the older neighborhoods was, really did a number on the downtown. It was probably, like I said, it's probably the best thing that Haddonfield's ever happened. The chances of it expanding, I think, are pretty slim. I think maybe it's because we have too many attorneys in town, but I think it would be great if it could. I think that would probably be another good thing, because as you get outside the historic district, that's where you're starting to see some other houses being demolished that maybe shouldn't be. And
I'm not all for the expanding the historic district. I'm for developing a understanding of the quality and character of space and the environment that Haddonfield has that's special, and trying to preserve
Can you
that.
be more specific? Be more specific about that.
So Haddonfield is a town that loves its historical content, right? It's colonialism. It also
it's dinosaur downtown too. Yeah.
it's dinosaur, right? It also celebrates its like seasonal like celebrations and things like the 4th of July. I mean, it celebrates the fact that it's got a great school system, right? Let's say, we know that a lot of people come here because of the school system, right? And I think that, I think if you take towns, so I've heard, I live in Haddon Township, and I love Haddon Township, but whenever I hear people talk about Haddonfield and try to justify what's going on in Haddonfield based on Haddon Township, I keep thinking, or Collingswood, I keep thinking you need to up your game. If you're going to compare yourself to somebody, it should be Princeton, Chestnut Hill, Charleston, South Carolina, like places that are really, really rich in the, and also education, driven, right? And if you look at those communities, they certainly, protect their historic communities, but they also really try hard to integrate modern and contemporary architecture that's sympathetic and works with the back, and that again is, you were right when you said, how are we going to like maintain these houses forever that have, there's some day where these houses aren't.
Well, you see them now, Jay. Like I know there are people that are struggling financially and can't afford to they just can't afford to keep up with it at all. I know they can't. And I can also go on and on about who Haddonfield decides to put pressure on, because for some reason when I moved in, they loved killing me with everything. But the lady that is in the historic district, whose literal house is falling down, they're leaving her alone. But we won't go. That's a whole other show.
Tom, how many times have you heard that story?
Yeah, right.
I never believe it, to be honest. I think that everybody thinks they're treated harder.
Well, listen, all I can tell you is I'll never forget this. And I swear to God, this is true. And this was actually is it Shade Tree or Tree? I can't remember. Is it Shade Tree Commission? Yeah. I had my guy. I was brand new to Haddonfield, and I had the guy come to trim some bushes, and one of the bushes was literally going on my house, like physically touching it. The police came. I lived in Philadelphia for 10 years. My first week in Haddonfield, they trimmed the bush, and the police officer comes in. She apologized. She's like, "But unfortunately, you can't cut that." And I'm like, "But it's on my house."
It's funny, yeah.
I can get
regulation.
Yeah. It's wild. It really is. It's wild.
Part of the conversation we've had is like the importance of protecting stuff. I think Haddonfield risks another thing that could affect the quality of its historic area, which is replication. Nothing devalues an original more than replication. It's one thing when it's Disney and you go to Epcot and you're standing in Germany, but it's not Germany.
Yeah.
Right? When you go to Germany, if it's Germany, right? And so by taking and building his replicas of historic homes in historic neighborhoods does nothing but devalue the original and make it look like it. There are some houses, and these houses cost a lot, and it's love that maintains them, love and money, right? And you build a replica, and you've made every house on the block look like it's in bad repair, no matter how well it's been taken care of, right? I learned that at a Porsche show where there were 356 Speedsters. There were 3 of them in a row. One was rusted out, one was crashed, but they were original. And then there was one next to it that was looked brand spanking new. And I asked my son, which one would you buy? If you could drive any of those home today, which one would you drive home? And he said, "Oh, that one, the shiny one." I said, you just gave away about $400,000.
Yeah.
That was a Porsche Route.
Yeah.
That was a replica car made like a 356. The other cars are worth $500,000. That one's worth 50. Right?
But it's the opposite though with houses, because the new house is going to be worth a lot more money than the old house is.
Yeah.
I mean, just because that's.
So my point was though that I see value in the replica. It just shouldn't be on the same row as the originals.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? Yeah. I mean, if I was walking through, I can see craftsmanship and mechanicship, and like I can marvel at all of that. But when you're seeing them and they're giving the same amount of prestige and value as a car that's been around for 70 years, it devalued. That's where I recognized that replicas devalue the original.
Well, I mean, that brings up a good point though. And I think that airs more towards the argument of the need to make sure that the homes in the historical district really do their part in keeping up with it. And, and at the end of the day, I hate to say this. Yeah, it's free market. Yeah, you can buy a house anywhere, but that's kind of what you get when you buy there. I mean, a town needs to protect that, I really, and the more we talk and the more I think about it, I mean, that's as much of our identity as anything.
Yeah, and Jay, you brought up a good point about the story of Haddonfield, and when you move here, you kind of, in some ways, buy into that story. Whether you're in the historic district or not, you still like the walkability to the downtown and the feel of the downtown. But I wonder, and perhaps you guys can answer this question: is what are the impediments to preserving the house? Is it just purely cost to keeping the original and restoring? Is it building code? Because you said that the building codes, pretty much dictate design in fundamental ways. So what are those impediments? And I do really like the idea of incentivizing the outcome with a tax abatement.
I like that too. That's awesome. You guys bring that up, by the way? Did either of you bring that up? You guys have brought that up.
Oh, there's been a lot of discussion about that, but they're never going to do anything like that.
Nice.
But
so Tom, you want to answer that question about
cost is certainly a big factor, because the materials, if you're trying to restore a house, the materials that they used back then are just more expensive. I mean, heck, wood siding that you have to repaint when you replace it and you do that kind of thing is more expensive. The windows that the historic district wants you to use that are as close as possible to the old ones, or restoring the old windows, cost as much as, if not more, than getting new ones. So, it's the materials being used, the standing seam metal roofs, slate roofs, corbels and brackets and all the kind of things you might find on a historic house is expensive. And that's certainly a big part of it. And I think we're fortunate in a lot of the historic district. Let's use Washington Avenue as an example. I've done, I'd probably say 8 or 9 or 10 of those houses in town, with helping, putting on new porches and restoring the houses and maybe doing an addition. I mean, it's expensive. Maybe in that part of town that people can afford it, I guess. I don't know what the answer is, but it's good that they were able to do that. I think there are certain parts of town that are in the historic district that are, smaller houses and maybe they're it's a little more costly to do some of the things that people want to do. Vinyl siding is a whole lot less than wood siding, and vinyl windows are a whole lot less than wood windows. But if you want to, if you're in the historic district and you want to maintain those houses, those are the kind of things you need to do.
And if you don't, then we don't have a historic district.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And there used to be a prestige. I guess I'm saying this. I'm not really sure that I'm sure. I mean, to live within the historic district in a house that's well maintained and manicured the way that I mean, carries a certain prestige and says something about your value system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's people who live in those houses. You can kind of say, if that person bought that house, I have a feeling that this is the type of value system that they have, right?
Mhm.
And then you can see people who buy McMansions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think as well, it says something about their value system,
Mm.
right? And that's not judgment. That's just fact. I mean, you know, and so I think we need more people who have a value system that likes authenticity, likes when they throw a ball against the side of the house, it goes bonk instead of crash.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a big difference. New Jersey has a thing called the rehabilitation subcode. So basically, an existing building does not have to be brought up to code as far as energy and things like that goes. And I mean, as you work on them, there are some requirements, but certainly historic properties are exempt from meeting most codes if they're actually historic. Not meeting most codes, but you know, if a railing needs to be 36 inches, but the original house had a 30-inch railing, you're allowed to put a 30-inch railing back. If you put a 36-inch railing back on some of these houses, it would be halfway up the column and it would just totally ruin everything, right? So, you know, that the technological standpoint is not something that helps, that hurts.
I want to ask a couple of fun questions. So, for Borough funded projects, whether they're new builds or things that they are specifically involved in, from an architectural standpoint, and this is more opinion based than anything, do you guys believe that they should be more focused on the historical look and feel to match, I guess, the old feel of the town? Or do you just think it's because I know that this has been a hot topic, especially over the past year or two with the bids for the different projects and things like that. How often are they consulting local architects for their opinions on these projects?
Not at all. not at all. Well, when you say borough funded projects, the only thing they're funding is something that's like if the schools are all what they are, right?
Okay, let me rephrase that. Borough chosen projects.
So it's really, I mean, I think there's really nothing they're doing that, and they're certainly, like I said, not consulting us that I'm aware of on anything, but they're really not building anything new. I mean, probably the newest thing that is this police station, but that was the bank.
Right.
And that was done by another architect, I don't know, back in the early 80s. And they just kind of retooled it a little bit.
Mm.
But and then the schools but they're all existing buildings.
Right.
So they really don't have, I can't imagine what they would do. I mean, I think Bancroft's going to be the
there you go. There's your zinger. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the issue with that is, and that's a whole nother story.
I just wanted it was more of an opinion question than anything in terms of the style of how it should be built.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there is something. Jay might have a different opinion, but I would think people in general would probably prefer things to be more traditional. I'll give you a good example. I did a building on Haddon Avenue for I'm not going to say where it is. It's for a dentist's office, and she wanted this building to be very contemporary, and it was outside the historic district. We could do whatever we wanted to do. And we took some trips around back in the city and looked at some different projects, and so I designed a building that was really what she wanted it to look like. It was, again, very kind of slick and modern. We went before the planning board. It didn't have to go before the historic commission, and we could design whatever we want. But we went before the planning board, and we actually got 2 members who voted against it. It passed, but they voted against it strictly because they didn't like the way the building looked. They said it was too modern, and we shouldn't be doing a modern building like this. And which is it really wasn't there. It wasn't even, or even the attorney was like, I can't believe he actually said that on the record, because, that can't be a reason to deny the application. But so if you want to know what, probably that group of people would want to see, I think you'll find that, people were complaining about the project they did above Jay West. They thought that didn't.
That's another one. Yeah.
But again, that was designed to fit in with the style of the building that was already there, the original Jay West building. So it wasn't supposed to look colonial. But like I said, it really depends on who you ask.
Yep. I mean, when I did the mixed use building on Tanner Street, that got a lot of negative comments in the beginning. Haddonfield United, it was one after the other, and you want to chime in and defend it, but that nobody really is there to learn anything. Like you're really not going into a conversation. It's more of a fight, right? So my wife actually made a comment to me that I thought was one of the best I'd heard. She said, when a new building goes in, it's kind of like if I'm making, chili and just throw the beans in and I come in and ask you to taste it, it's going to taste horrible, right? She says, like, unless, you shouldn't judge something until a year. I mean, it needs to simmer. It needs to fit in. It needs to grow in and age, and then it's, able to be judged. And Lisa Soderberg called me one day, about 2 years ago, probably about 6 years after we finished the project. And I mean, it was the nicest call I think I've gotten and I figured I was in trouble for some reason. She's the HPC professional, advisor. And she said, I just wanted to call you. I'm out in front of this building, and I'll tell you, I just think it's a marvelous job. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And, you're talking about public projects right across the street, that they made us put historical approved windows. And, at that time across the street, the library was being redone, and they put a vinyl window in the library in the historic district. So how do you try to enforce, that and talk about the importance of something if you don't follow it yourself?
Right.
I think they slipped that one by. I talked to them about that.
Yeah, I think the builder slipped and nobody caught it.
They changed something. Yeah, they let him and Anderson.
Yep.
Well, so I will tell you guys that it's really something. I think not every town has two people that are very passionate and dedicated, I think, to the architectural landscape of the town itself. Not every town in South Jersey has two people that brand themselves as wanting to be known for the architecture in town. And I think that's cool. I think it's really something that's very commendable when you think about it, because you guys both are enamored with Haddonfield for some reason or another, right? Or you wouldn't be calling yourselves Haddonfield architects, right? And I think that's important. Yeah, what's that?
I think Tom would agree with me. I mean, the reason we're able to do what we do is because it's a community who has, some vision and passion for, the community, the context they live in,
Right.
That's why we can do this. It's not, most towns don't have this kind of conversation going on, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's exciting for Chris and I, who are raising families here, to think of the future of it as well, because, one of the things that you see, and you can see this in certain towns throughout South Jersey, there are also towns that went the opposite direction. And that sucks.
Right.
So it's good, and it's nice to speak highly of this because of the fact that we are, a good-looking town. I mean, we should call ourselves a handsome town. I think we're a handsome town, right? And it's because of the fact that we have people like you that are dedicated so passionately to it. I think it's exciting. I think it's cool. I really do. I think it's just one other aspect that makes us such a cool place to be and live. And I think, Jay, you brought up some really interesting points about these other really noteworthy historic towns throughout the country to look to emulate as we continue to go battle over stupid issues. And they're not stupid to some, but I'll call them stupid,
Right.
because it's my opinion. How about focusing on the things that aren't as stupid?
I mean, not to take credit away, because I mean they did go, like Tom had said, they went to Westfield, and looked at how they do things with design guidelines, which basically tell you what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do.
Which is the town that they, couldn't remember the name of the town. You're
And
right.
that's a good taste committee, right? Like you're only allowed to do what we can tell you that you can do. And the fact that the people who are doing it at the time locked into that town, I think is says a lot about who was on the committee, right?
Yeah.
Because there are other towns who've done, more things that I think are focused more on the future.
Yeah.
And maintaining the past, but also celebrating what's coming in the future. Westfield's a very, very, very wealthy area. So they can kind of get away with it, we're trying to develop an area that is more diverse, right? I mean, that's what the master plan talks about. And so, that idea of being more diverse.
I think master plan is such a crazy. It's just. I feel like they should call it something else. I don't know. I mean, we can debate that at another time, but I'm like, when I think of master plan, I don't think positive. I don't know.
So I think one other thing I wanted to get in before we end is is the incentivization of things, right? If that's the right way to say that word. I make up words all the time.
That's fine.
If what we want is a certain rigor and commitment to a project, a design of a project, of a house or whatever, and we ought to be trying to figure out how to incentivize it, right? Well, one way the town could be incentivizing it is they should have competitions. I mean, every year they could have a competition for the best renovation project. Submit your application, and then there would be a conversation about the different projects. There could be a community best. There could be a judged best. And, Tom and I would love to be getting that kind of recognition as, I thankfully got some recognition in the last year for some of my design work, and it feels really, really good. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of architects in most areas where they're getting recognition and praise and support from their communities and from awards that aren't just like AIA and Forbes. It's basically towns and people really saying, and it shouldn't just be for us. It should be for the builders, right? If sustainability is something we want to be pushing, we should be having what does it take really for a town to have a 5-person board for architectural awards, right? Or community development awards. Maybe it's not even just architects, or maybe it's somebody who comes out with money that that improves the community in some way. The art walk has been a fantastic thing for the.
That's right. Talk about that. I shouldn't let you guys talk about the art walk. I forgot about that. Yeah, I apologize. Maybe you can talk about that real quick.
Basically, what that is I'm actually on the board of host. And Art Walk was Stu Harding's concept from the beginning to create something that is a little area of Mechanic Street, kind of brings people down Mechanic Street a little bit, and it's kind of a changing shows. They have students from the high school, they have people from Markham Art Center, they have artists from the Mabel K historic or Mabel K art group. And then there was some discussion about, having Jay and I put something together. And this was all taken over by Joe Sikora from Sikora Wells. And so we said, sure, we'll put something together. And that's kind of when we decided to do the art of architecture. And it'll be up there for 4 or 5 months, I think. It's cool. It's something we get to kind of show a little bit of our stuff, and I think it's kind of a neat thing.
I think it explains a little bit about the differences in the thinking between Tom and I, and how we take on, and try to solve problems. And I thought it was great. The exhibit there before we went up was the high school art class submission,
Right.
which I thought. I mean, I went and read every one of them. I thought it was great to see what young, artists are thinking about their community. And that was introducing art into everyday life. I mean, that doesn't happen that happens in places like Princeton, right? Not in Haddon Township.
Yeah. And I think Host is, the whole having the sculptures, all over the downtown is another thing that kind of brings people in town to look at. I think that was a great thing that Haddonfield does. It's again, another feather in their cap. So it's been, that's been another driving force getting people downtown.
And when is the exhibition start, or is it already up for the art?
It's up.
Oh, it's up.
Okay. Been up since when, Jay? When did we have the thing? December, right?
Yeah, we had it December 5th, I think, was the open.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be there till, I don't know.
And it was snow. It was going to snow that night. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, perhaps once we thaw out a little bit, walk downtown.
Go downtown and take a look.
Yeah. Well, I'll wrap this up by saying, and this is a compliment to you both, and Chris will probably share my sentiments. Whenever we see a project being done and your signs are out front, I think it's a trophy piece for the homeowner, knowing that it's going to be something really well done, really well known. And that's a testament to both of you. So we appreciate the fact that you're so passionate and driven and enamored with our town. And we hope you guys can continue to do that, to continue to preserve, but also grow and modernize both the town itself and the community and the culture. So thanks for what you do. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Could I ask one last question?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
One last question. No, I sincerely appreciate your time tonight and your insights and sharing. I just had one practical question. Hopefully it's a short question or short answer, if it can be. But if for a homeowner in Haddonfield, prior to their first call to you to retain your services, what's one piece of information that they should come prepared with?
A survey.
Okay. Perfect.
That's an easy one, because everything in Haddonfield has to do with where the house is on the lot, how many square feet, how much coverage you have already, how much, it tells a whole big story. It's the first thing I'm going to guess Jay will say the same thing, but that's the first key of information that you need.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that is definitely from a site perspective, and then just from a building programming perspective, if you can give me a list of the problems you're trying to solve, then I think we, I often ask, what is it that you hope to be able to do in your house that you can't do in your house today? And like sometimes people just say, well, I just want more room.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you're kind of like, okay, so maybe I'm not the right architect for that project. So, but good question. Great question.
Beautiful.
That was a good question.
No, thank you.
You always give the zingers, man. You should just cut me off more often.
Well, I'll share it. I do some land use law. I'm an attorney in town as well, and one of the many. But I do get the impervious coverage questions, and then the how do we avoid having to retain me to do anything?
Exactly right.
And
we got to be creative with
yep.
with the where what you want to do and
Mhm.
and what the zoning board will allow and that kind of thing. So
Sure.
Well, again, thanks everyone for watching another edition of Haddonfield Talks. Please follow us on our Facebook page. The full episode should be up on the YouTube page right after. Gentlemen, hopefully we see you again in the future. Best of luck with your projects, and thanks for watching.
okay,
It was
Thank you
enjoyable,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
For having me.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Have a good night.
see you guys.
Hey.
Bye-bye.